The klaxons blared through the corridors of Lunar Base Alpha, their urgent wail piercing the usual hum of life support systems. Commander Astria Novak sprinted down the hallway, her heart pounding in sync with the flashing red emergency lights. She burst into the control room, her eyes immediately drawn to the massive view screen dominating the far wall. "Status report now," she barked, her voice carrying over the cacophony of alarms and frantic chatter. Lieutenant Kai Riven swiveled in his chair, his face ashen. "Commander, it's impossible. The readings must be wrong. They have to be." Astria's eyes narrowed. "Spit it out, Riven. What are we dealing with?" Kai's fingers flew over his console, bringing up a series of bewildering graphs and figures. "It's the sun, ma'am. It's shrinking. And not just a little. We're talking a 5% reduction in mass over the last hour." The control room fell silent, the enormity of the statement sinking in. Astria felt her blood run cold. That's not possible. The laws of physics are being rewritten as we speak," interrupted Dr. Zephyr Quasar, the base's lead astrophysicist. She strode into the room, her usually immaculate lab coat askew. "I've triple-checked the data. It's happening, and it's accelerating. At this rate, we have maybe 72 hours before." She trailed off, but everyone knew what she meant. Before the sun became too small to sustain Earth's biosphere. Before billions of lives were snuffed out in a cosmic instant. Commander Novak took a deep breath, steeling herself. "All right, people, I need options. Now, Kai, give me a direct line to mission control. Zephyr, I want every theory you can come up with, no matter how insane. The rest of you, start prepping emergency protocols. We are officially in uncharted territory." As the control room erupted into frenzied activity, Astria allowed herself one moment of pure, unadulterated terror. The sun itself was dying, defying every law of stellar physics they knew. How in the hell were they supposed to adapt to this? But as quickly as the fear came, she pushed it aside. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. They'd survived ice ages, pandemics, and their own destructive tendencies. Now, they faced their greatest challenge yet, but Astria be damned if they weren't going to give it everything they had. She strode to the primary communications console, her voice steady as she opened a channel to Earth. "Mission Control, this is Lunar Base Alpha. We have a situation of unprecedented magnitude. Initiating Protocol Omega. I repeat, initiating Protocol Omega." There was a beat of silence, then a crackle of static. "Lunar Base Alpha, this is Mission Control. Please confirm, did you just initiate Protocol Omega? That's reserved for extinction-level events." Astria's grip tightened on the console. "Affirmative, Mission Control. We are facing an extinction-level event. The sun is shrinking at an alarming rate. We need to mobilize every resource we have. Time is not on our side." As she began relaying the dire data to the stunned silence on the other end, Astria's mind raced. They needed solutions, and they needed them fast. The greatest minds on and off Earth would have to come together like never before. In the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that this might be it, the challenge humanity couldn't overcome. But she silenced it ruthlessly. They had overcome the impossible before. They would do it again. They had to. Dr. Quasar approached, her tablet clutched tightly in her trembling hands. "Commander, I've run some preliminary simulations. If we can't find a way to stop this, Astria, we're looking at global crop failures within weeks. Catastrophic climate shifts within days. The planet's magnetic field will start to destabilize as the solar wind weakens." Astria nodded grimly. "Keep working on it, Zephyr. We need to understand the mechanism behind this. Is it natural? Artificial? Are we dealing with some cosmic anomaly? Or—" She hesitated, lowering her voice. "Or something more sinister?" Zephyr's eyes widened. "You don't think? Aliens?" "At this point, I'm not ruling anything out," Astria replied. "Get in touch with SETI. Have them scan for any unusual signals. And I want every radio telescope we have pointed at that sun. If something's causing this, we need to know what, and fast." As Zephyr hurried off, Astria turned back to the main view screen. The familiar disk of the sun stared back at her, deceptively normal to the naked eye. But the numbers didn't lie. With each passing second, their star, the giver of all life in their solar system, was wasting away. "Kai," she called out, "give me a direct line to the International Space Station. We're going to need every eye we can get on this phenomenon." As her crew scrambled to carry out her orders, Astria allowed herself one more moment of quiet reflection. The next few days would push humanity to its absolute limits. They would need to innovate, adapt, and overcome on a scale never before seen in human history. But as she looked around at the determined faces of her team, she felt a spark of hope. If any species could stare down the impossible and find a way through, it was humanity. They had clawed their way up from the primordial ooze, survived countless near extinctions, and reached for the stars themselves. Now those very stars were challenging them in a way they never could have imagined. But humanity would rise to meet that challenge. They always did. Astria squared her shoulders and began issuing a rapid-fire series of commands. The fate of their entire species now rested on their ability to solve a cosmic puzzle with no precedent and seemingly no solution. The game was on, and losing was not an option. The atmosphere in mission control was electric, a palpable mixture of fear and determination crackling through the air. Dr. Orion Helios, Earth's foremost solar physicist, stood before a sea of worried faces, his usual confident demeanor shaken. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice hoarse from hours of nonstop discussion, "we are facing a crisis unprecedented in human history. Our sun, the very heart of our solar system, is dying before our eyes." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Orion raised his hand, silencing them. "In the 48 hours since Lunar Base Alpha first detected the anomaly, we've witnessed a 12% reduction in solar mass. Our models..." He paused, swallowing hard. "Our models suggest total solar collapse within the week if this trend continues." The room erupted into chaos. Shouts of disbelief, cries of anguish, and frantic questions all blended into a deafening roar. "Enough!" The thunderous voice cut through the din like a knife. All eyes turned to General Athena Stormwind, her weathered face a mask of iron determination. "We don't have time for panic. Dr. Helios, what are our options?" Orion's shoulders sagged. "General, we're stumbling in the dark here. Nothing in our current understanding of stellar physics can explain this. We've ruled out natural phenomena, artificial structures large enough to cause this would be visible. We're at a loss." From the back of the room, a voice piped up. "What about the Dyson Sphere project?" Heads turned to see Dr. Lyra Novakovich, a brilliant but often overlooked theoretical physicist. She pushed her way to the front, her eyes blazing with a mix of fear and excitement. "It's insane, I know," she continued, "but hear me out. We've been developing the technology to harness solar energy on a massive scale. What if we could reverse the process? Use our prototypes to feed energy back into the sun?" General Stormwind's eyes narrowed. "That's a hell of a what-if, Doctor. We're talking about technology that's decades from being operational, let alone on the scale we'd need." Lyra nodded frantically. "Yes, but as a starting point, we have brilliant minds all over the world. If we pool our resources, work around the clock, we'd still be trying to plug a leaking dam with a thimble," Orion interjected, his tone bitter. "The energy requirements alone are staggering. We'd need to harness the power of a dozen suns just to stabilize our own." The room fell silent, the weight of their impossible situation settling over them like a shroud. Then, from a corner, a quiet voice spoke up. What if we're thinking too big?" All eyes turned to Kai Riven, the young lieutenant from Lunar Base Alpha who had first detected the anomaly. He flinched under the sudden attention, but pressed on. We're trying to solve this on a solar system scale. But what if the solution is smaller? What if there's something happening on the quantum level that we can't see?" Dr. Helios scoffed. "Young man, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but quantum effects don't scale up to stellar masses. It's simply not possible." Lyra cut in, her eyes lighting up. "But nothing about this situation is possible. Orion, We're dealing with a phenomenon that breaks every law of physics we know. Maybe it's time we started thinking outside the box. General Stormwind held up her hand, silencing the budding argument. All right, people, we've got two avenues to pursue. Dr. Novakovich, I want you leading a team on this reverse Dyson sphere concept. It's a long shot, but it's the best large-scale option we've got. Dr. Helios, work with Lieutenant Riven on exploring these quantum theories. Leave no stone unturned. She turned to address the entire room, her voice ringing with authority. I won't sugarcoat this. We are facing extinction, but I will be damned if humanity goes down without a fight. We've got the brightest minds on the planet in this room and beyond. It's time to prove why we're the species that went from caves to the moon in the blink of cosmic eye. As the room burst into frenzied activity, Kai found himself swept up in a whirlwind of equations and theories. His mind raced, trying to connect impossible dots. They were fumbling in the dark, yes, but maybe, just maybe, they'd stumble upon the light switch. Thousands of miles above, Commander Astria Novak stared out the viewport of Lunar Base Alpha, her eyes fixed on the diminishing sun. Come on, Earth, she whispered. Show the universe what we're made of. In labs and research centers across the globe, scientists worked with feverish intensity. Quantum physicists delved into realms of reality so strange they bordered on mystical. Engineers pushed the boundaries of material science, trying to construct devices that could withstand the fury of a dying star. But as the hours ticked by, frustration mounted. Every simulation ended in failure. Every prototype fell short. The sun continued its inexorable shrinkage, mocking their efforts with each passing second. Dr. Zephyr Quasar slammed her fist on her desk, scattering papers. It's not working, she cried, tears of frustration stinging her eyes. We're missing something fundamental. Across the room, Lyra looked up from her own failed calculations. We need a paradigm shift. We're still thinking like 21st century humans trying to solve a problem beyond our comprehension. Kai, who had been staring at a whiteboard covered in indecipherable equations, suddenly froze. Wait, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. What if we're not just dealing with our sun? The room fell silent, all eyes turning to the young lieutenant. Explain, Orion demanded, his earlier skepticism tempered by desperation. Kai's words tumbled out in a rush. Quantum entanglement. We've always thought it was limited to subatomic particles, right? But what if stars could be entangled? What if our sun is connected to others across vast distances we can't even fathom? Lyra's eyes widened. And if one star in the network started to fail, it could create a cascading effect, Zephyr finished, her voice filled with awe and terror in equal measure. For a moment, the enormity of the idea left them all speechless. They weren't just fighting to save their sun, their world. They were potentially up against a cosmic domino effect that could reshape the very fabric of the universe. Orion was the first to recover. It's insane. But then again, so is everything else about this situation. Lyra, I want you two working on this theory. If there's even a chance, it could lead us to a solution. As the team dove back into their work with renewed vigor, a glimmer of hope began to shine through the despair. They were still stumbling in the dark, but now they had the faintest outline of a path forward. Humanity's greatest minds were pushing themselves to the absolute limit, racing against a doomsday clock that ticked louder with each passing moment. But with every failure, every setback, their resolve only grew stronger. They would find a way. They had to. The alternative was unthinkable. As the sun outside continued to shrink, casting longer shadows across a world holding its collective breath, the seeds of an impossible solution began to take root. Humanity was adapting, evolving their very understanding of the cosmos in real time. The question remained, would it be enough? And more importantly, would they figure it out in time? The stage was set for a scientific breakthrough that would either save their world or bear witness to its final moments. The world held its breath as the sun continued its inexorable shrinkage. Cities across the globe had fallen into a perpetual twilight, the weakened sunlight casting long, ominous shadows. Panic simmered just beneath the surface of society, held in check only by the desperate hope that somewhere, somehow, humanity's brightest minds would pull off a miracle. In a hastily repurposed particle accelerator complex beneath the Swiss Alps, that miracle was taking shape, but not without a cost. "We're losing him," Dr. Lyra Novakovic shouted, her hands flying over a console covered in blinking lights and incomprehensible readouts. "Kai, can you hear me?" Lieutenant Kai Riven's body convulsed in the modified sensory deprivation tank, a tangle of wires and electrodes connecting him to a machine that defied conventional understanding. His theory about quantum entanglement between stars had led them down a rabbit hole of experimental physics that blurred the line between science and science fiction. "His neural patterns are destabilizing," Dr. Zephyr Quasar reported, her voice tight with tension. "Whatever he's experiencing in there, it's overwhelming his sensory cortex." General Athena Stormwind stepped forward, her face a mask of grim determination. "Pull him out. Now!" "We can't," Lyra protested. "He's our only link to understanding what's happening on a quantum level. If we disconnect him now, we might lose our only chance to dash. I will not sacrifice this young man on the altar of scientific curiosity," Athena growled. "Get him out." Before anyone could move, a strangled gasp came from the tank. Kai's eyes flew open, wider than should have been humanly possible, glowing with an ethereal light. "I see it," he screamed, his voice resonating at a frequency that made everyone's teeth ache. "Oh God, it's beautiful and terrifying, and it's all connected." The machines around him began to spark and smoke, overloading from whatever impossible data they were receiving. Lyra lunged forward, frantically trying to record every scrap of information before the systems crashed completely. With a final, ear-splitting shriek of tortured metal, the equipment went dark. Kai slumped in the tank, unconscious but alive. As medical personnel rushed to extract him, Lyra stared at the fragments of data she'd managed to save. Her hands trembled as she began to decipher what Kai had experienced. This changes everything," she whispered. Hours later, in a room that hummed with nervous energy, humanity's last, best hope gathered around a holographic display. Kai, pale but alert, sat at the center, his eyes still holding a hint of that otherworldly glow. "What I saw," he began, his voice hoarse, "was beyond anything we could have imagined. Our sun isn't just entangled with a few other stars. It's part of a vast cosmic web that spans galaxies. Maybe the entire universe." Dr. Orion Helios leaned forward, skepticism warring with desperate hope on his face. "And this web is what's causing the drain on our sun?" Kai nodded. "It's like, imagine the universe as a giant organism. Stars are its cells, and this quantum network is its nervous system. But something's gone wrong. There's a cancer in the system, spreading from star to star, consuming their energy." The room erupted into a cacophony of questions and exclamations. General Stormwind's voice cut through the din. "Can we stop it?" A heavy silence fell. Kai's eyes met Lyra's, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. "Maybe," Lyra said slowly, "but not with any technology we currently possess. What we need is, well, it's going to sound insane." "Doctor," Athena said dryly, "we passed insane about 3 impossible things ago." "Spit it out." Lyra took a deep breath. "We need to build a device that can interact with this quantum web directly. A sort of cosmic pacemaker, if you will. Something that can rebalance the energy flow and halt the drain on our sun." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from the back of the room, a voice spoke up. "I think I might have an idea about that." All eyes turned to see Dr. Zephyr Quasar, clutching a tablet with white-knuckled intensity. "I've been working on a side project, something I thought was purely theoretical, but now..." She stepped forward, bringing up a schematic on the main display. It showed a device of mind-bending complexity, a fusion of cutting-edge technology and principles that seemed to border on the mystical. "I call it the quantum resonance amplifier," Zephyr explained. "In theory, it could generate fields that interact with subatomic particles in ways we've only dreamed of." If we could scale it up, modify it based on what Kai saw, we might have a shot at saving not just our sun, but the entire cosmic web. Lyra finished, her eyes shining with renewed hope. For a moment, no one spoke. The enormity of what they were contemplating, a device that could potentially rewrite the laws of physics on a universal scale, was almost too much to comprehend. Then General Stormwind stepped forward, her voice ringing with authority. All right, people, we got a plan. It's insane, it's improbable, and it's the only hope we've got. I want every resource we have poured into this project. We're not just fighting for humanity anymore. We're fighting for the entire damn universe. As the room erupted into frenzied activity, Kai caught Lyra's eye. Do you really think this can work? He asked quietly. Lyra's face was a mixture of terror and exhilaration. I have no idea, she admitted. But that's never stopped humanity before, has it? With a shared nod of determination, they dove into the most ambitious engineering project in human history. The clock was ticking, the sun was shrinking, and the fate of existence itself hung in the balance. But as impossible as their task seemed, a spark of true hope had been kindled. Humanity was about to attempt something no species had ever dreamed of, and in doing so, they might just save everything. The race against cosmic extinction had entered its final, frantic stage, and humanity, with all its flaws and all its brilliance, was leading the charge. The cavernous hangar, once home to experimental aircraft, now buzzed with an energy that bordered on manic. At its center stood the quantum resonance amplifier, a towering marvel of human desperation and ingenuity. Its sleek, otherworldly design seemed to defy conventional physics, pulsing with an ethereal light that hurt the eyes if you looked at it too long. Dr. Lyra Novakovich wiped sweat from her brow, her eyes bloodshot from days without proper sleep. Power fluctuations are still unstable, she muttered, fingers flying over a holographic interface. We're missing something crucial. Beside her, Kai Riven nodded grimly. The young lieutenant had become a vital part of the project, his mind forever altered by his brush with the cosmic quantum web. It's like we're trying to play a symphony, but we're missing half the instruments. From across the room, Dr. Zephyr Quasar's voice rang out, tinged with frustration. The theoretical models are solid. This should work. Should isn't good enough when we're talking about the fate of the universe. General Athena Stormwind growled, striding into view. Her uniform was rumpled, dark circles under her eyes betraying the weight of command. We're down to our last 72 hours before total solar collapse. I need solutions, people. The tension in the room ratcheted up another notch. Humanity's last, best hopes seemed to be slipping through their fingers like stardust. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red warning lights bathed everything in an apocalyptic glow. What now? Athena roared, spinning towards the main display. Dr. Orion Helios' face appeared on the screen, his expression a mixture of awe and terror. General, we're picking up an enormous energy signature entering the solar system. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. The image shifted, showing a real-time feed from deep space telescopes. Against the backdrop of stars, a shape began to materialize. It defied easy description, a shimmering, fractal pattern that seemed to fold in on itself in impossible ways. Oh my God, Lyra breathed. It's a ship. As if in response to her words, the alien vessel, if that's what it truly was, pulsed with light. Suddenly, every screen in the facility flickered, then resolved into a new image. The being that appeared was so alien, so utterly other, the human mind struggled to process what they were seeing. It seemed to be composed of pure energy, shifting and flowing in patterns that hinted at an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. When it spoke, the words seemed to bypass their ears entirely, resonating directly in their minds. Children of the third planet, the entity's voice boomed, somehow conveying both infinite power and gentle concern. We have felt the disruption in the cosmic web. We come to offer aid. For a moment, stunned silence reigned. Then General Stormwind stepped forward, her voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. We We welcome your assistance, she said carefully. But who are you? And how do you know about the cosmic web? The being's form shimmered, as if amused. We are the Guardians, shepherds of the great confluence. We have watched your species since you first gazed at the stars with wonder. And now, in your hour of greatest need, we come to stand beside you. Lyra's mind raced, connecting impossible dots. You're part of the web, aren't you? You exist on a quantum level throughout the universe. Perceptive young one, the Guardian replied. We are both part of the web and its caretakers. But even we cannot stem the tide of entropy that threatens to unravel all of creation. Kai stepped forward, his eyes glowing faintly as he tapped into his newfound connection to the cosmic web. But together, maybe we can? The Guardian's form pulsed with what might have been approval. Indeed, your quantum resonance amplifier is crude but inspired. With our knowledge and your resourcefulness, we may yet avert catastrophe. What followed was a collaboration unlike anything in human history. The Guardians shared insights into the fundamental nature of reality that made Earth's most advanced physics look like a child's crayon drawings. Lyra, Zephyr, and their team worked feverishly to incorporate this cosmic wisdom into their device, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. As the hours ticked by, the quantum resonance amplifier evolved. Its already alien design became even more mind-bending, incorporating principles that would take humanity centuries to fully understand. But even as hope grew, so did the stakes. The Guardians revealed the true scope of the threat. The entropic cascade affecting their sun was just the beginning. If left unchecked, it would spread throughout the cosmic web, unraveling the very fabric of the universe. We're not just saving Earth anymore, Kai realized, his voice filled with awe. We're saving everything. With less than 24 hours left before their sun's collapse reached the point of no return, final preparations began. The enhanced quantum resonance amplifier was transported to a hastily constructed launch facility. Its destination, the very edge of the solar system, where the barriers between normal space and the quantum realm were thinnest. As the massive rocket ignited, carrying humanity's desperate gambit into the void, General Stormwind turned to the assembled team. Her voice was solemn, but carried an undercurrent of fierce pride. No matter what happens next, she said, I want you all to remember this moment. Humanity, faced with the impossible, reached for the stars, and the stars reached back. Whatever comes, we face the end of everything with courage, ingenuity, and hope. The Guardians' energy form shimmered beside them, a silent sentinel as they watched the rocket vanish into the darkening sky. Now, all they could do was wait, and hope that their unlikely alliance would be enough to rewrite the fate of the cosmos itself. The final act was about to begin, and its outcome would determine the future not just of humanity, but of all existence. The control room of Earth's makeshift cosmic command center thrummed with nervous energy. Every eye was fixed on the massive display dominating the far wall, tracking the quantum resonance amplifier's journey to the edge of the solar system. Commander Astria Novak's voice crackled over the comms from Lunar Base Alpha. Trajectory nominal. QRA approaching optimal deployment zone in T-minus 10 minutes. Dr. Lyra Novakovich nodded tersely, her fingers dancing over holographic controls. Power systems holding steady. Quantum field generators at 97% capacity and rising. Beside her, Kai Riven stood unnaturally still, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. He had become their living link to the cosmic web, his mind stretched across impossible distances. I can feel it, he whispered, voice tight with strain. The entropy cascade. It's like a tidal wave of nothingness, consuming everything in its path. The Guardian's energy form shimmered, its voice resonating in their minds. The young one speaks truth. The unraveling accelerates. We must act swiftly. General Athena Stormwind's grip tightened on the back of a chair, her knuckles white. Dr. Novakovich, status report. Can this crazy plan of ours actually work? Lyra took a deep breath, forcing confidence into her voice. In theory, yes. The QRA should be able to generate a quantum field powerful enough to rebalance the cosmic web, halting the entropy cascade. But what? Athena pressed. But we're dealing with forces beyond our comprehension, Lyra admitted. The slightest miscalculation could tear a hole in the fabric of reality itself. A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the steady beep of monitoring equipment. The weight of an entire universe seemed to press down on their shoulders. 2 minutes to deployment zone. Astria's voice cut through the tension. Kai suddenly gasped, his body going rigid. It's accelerating. The cascade. I can see it consuming entire star systems. The Guardian's form pulsed with urgency. We must act now. There can be no further delay. Lyra's hands flew over the controls, initiating quantum field generation. Now! The main display erupted in a kaleidoscope of impossible colors as the quantum resonance amplifier roared to life. Energy tendrils, visible even across the vast distances of space, began to spread outward from the device. QRA power output at 120% and climbing. Dr. Zephyr Quasar reported, her voice tight with tension. We're redlining every system. Kai's eyes rolled back in his head, his voice taking on an otherworldly resonance. I can see it. The quantum field is expanding, reaching out across the cosmic web. For a moment, hope surged through the control room. Then, with a sound like reality itself screaming in pain, alarms began to blare. We got a problem, Zephyr shouted. The entropy cascade is fighting back. It's like the universe itself is rejecting our attempt to rewrite its laws. The Guardian's form flickered, its voice strained. The force we face is primal, as old as existence itself. It will not be easily overcome. Lyra's mind raced, desperation fueling inspiration. We need more power. We need to push beyond anything we've ever attempted. General Stormwind's voice cut through the chaos. Whatever you need, Doctor. The fate of everything rests in our hands. Make it happen. What followed was a symphony of desperate ingenuity. Lyra and her team pushed the QRA to its absolute limits and beyond. Power was rerouted from every source available. Cities plunged into darkness as every ounce of energy was funneled into their cosmic gambit. The Guardian joined its own unfathomable energies to the effort, its form stretching across dimensions to bolster the quantum field. At the heart of it all stood Kai, his body arched in agony as he became a living conduit between the physical world and the cosmic web. Blood trickled from his nose and ears, but his voice rang out with unshakable determination. Don't stop, he screamed. We're almost there. I can feel the balance shifting. The control room shook, reality itself seeming to warp around them as forces beyond human comprehension clashed on a universal scale. And then, just when it seemed that everything would fly apart, silence. The alarms cut out. The violent shaking ceased. Kai collapsed to the ground, caught at the last moment by Lyra. For a heartbeat that seemed to last an eternity, no one dared to breathe. Then, slowly, impossibly, the main display began to change. The sickly pallor that had overtaken their sun for days began to recede. Stars that had been flickering on the edge of extinction burst back to brilliant life. The Guardian's form solidified, radiating an aura of profound relief, and was that all? IT is done, the cosmic entity intoned. The balance is restored. The universe lives. A ragged cheer went up from the assembled humans, exhaustion and elation mingling in equal measure. Tears flowed freely as the enormity of what they had accomplished began to sink in. Kai stirred in Lyra's arms, his eyes fluttering open. The otherworldly glow had faded, leaving behind a tired but triumphant smile. Did we do it? He asked weakly. Lyra nodded, her own tears falling freely. We did it, Kai. We save everything. As the celebration erupted around them, General Stormwind stepped to the center of the room, her voice cutting through the joyous chaos. Today, she began, her tone solemn but filled with pride, humanity has proven itself worthy of the stars. We faced the impossible, stared into the abyss of oblivion itself, and emerged victorious. Not just for ourselves, but for all of creation. The Guardian's form shimmered in agreement. You have surpassed our greatest hopes, children of Earth. In your darkest hour, you have become a beacon of hope for the entire cosmos. As the sun outside blazed with renewed vigor, painting the world in the golden hues of a new dawn, humanity stood at the threshold of a new era. They had adapted to the impossible, forged unlikely alliances, and in doing so, had not just saved their world, but reshaped the very destiny of the universe. The cosmic web pulsed with renewed life, and at its heart, a small blue planet spun on, home to a species that had proven itself capable of the truly extraordinary. Humanity's secret superpower, the ability to adapt to the impossible, had been revealed on the grandest stage imaginable. And the universe itself would never be the same.